I mean, this is why you fall down. Ugh.
And watch for that right. Oh, it's going to be over. Big shot! And it's all over! Just!
I mean, this is why you fall down. Ugh.
Master Wong presents to us a scenario where we have just been clipped in the chin to the point that we fall down. Essentially, we've been knocked out. This is a point where if it were an MMA fight, a referee may stop the fight and call it a technical knockout because one fighter is no longer able to intelligently defend himself, having just received a concussive blow, knocking him to the ground, impairing his cognitive abilities. A fighter may continue to fight in this state, but he will be reacting, not acting. I've been in this situation more than once, and I cannot overstate how important it is that your technique must be drilled perfectly into your muscle memory because you will no longer be able to think, you will only react. You may have noticed the video in the lower left-hand corner of Chris Weidman on the receiving end of a brutal beating from Luke Rockhold in the UFC. Chris Weidman is an excellent wrestler, a phenomenal grappler, one of the top fighters in his division, and yet here we are. A brutal illustration of the reality of the difference between the fantasy and the reality of ground and pound. This is not to say that mount is an inescapable position. Absolutely not. It is an important position that every competent fighter should drill from both ends. They should master mount escapes. They should master control from mount. So why does Master Wong, who knows next to nothing about grappling, belong in a conversation about grappling positions? Besides the fact that he keeps making videos about grappling, and people keep watching them. Why would any serious grappler dedicate any time to discussing this man's technique? Well, the same reason weightlifters should discuss CrossFit. I'm just going to put this out there. CrossFit is not the most effective way to learn Olympic weightlifting. Now, I know a lot of Olympic weightlifters get their start in CrossFit, but think of it as weightlifting for the streets, meaning you have to relearn everything when you want to take it seriously. Millions of people on the internet get their first exposure to martial arts training through guys like Master Wong. And unfortunately, if they follow a step-by-step tutorial of a straight ankle lock like this, they'll find themselves failing. Why? Because it's taught incorrectly. But let's get back to the mount escapes. So what is so wrong with the way Master Wong is bridging and rolling here? It looks like a basic upa from Brazilian jiu-jitsu. What's the deal? Why am I complaining? We've got to look very closely at the details. This is a simple technique, but simple things will determine whether or not it works against a resisting opponent. The devil is in the details here. And Master Wong gets about 80% of this right, but it's that missing 20% that will determine whether or not this works. This is not a matter of street versus sport. This is a simple matter of, will it work against a real, live person against any level of resistance? Not against a trained person, but against a person reacting as they naturally would.
Okay, I want to talk about why it's so important to learn jiu-jitsu from somebody who actually knows jiu-jitsu. Now, in Master Wong's video, it looks a lot like a basic Brazilian jiu-jitsu technique called an upa, where you trap an arm, he pushes it to the body right here, and he overhooks the leg with his leg right there, and you know that's fine. And then he bridges and he rolls, or at least it looks like it. He kind of limps a little and gets over the top. Okay, and when Jordan's playing along, that's perfectly fine. But now Jordan, he's sitting my hips, so when my hips move, he's going to move. But Jordan, I'm going to grab this arm and I'm going to pin it. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to do this. I'm going to overlace this leg and everything. And this time, don't let me roll you, okay? So, now, some of you might be thinking, well, you're not doing the same thing. No, he's not doing the same thing. He's not cooperating this time. Now, why did he roll before, but not this time? I'm going to show you a better way to do it. And it's one subtle little thing. It has nothing to do with this leg. Right? Some people like to hook this leg. I don't even bother with that. It just takes too much time when you're getting punched in the face. But if I can take this arm out of play, yeah, that's good. I like to overhook it. I mean, I guess you could push it to the body, but that pushes him away from me. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold on to this with two arms here. I'm going to change one thing, the position of my head. I'll put it here. Now, Jordan, don't let me roll you. What's different there? Here, come on over here, film from above if you will. So look down so you can see what I'm doing with my head. So when it's not working, my head is in this position. When it is working, I move my head out of the way. And I've created a negative space right here. So when I bridge and I roll, he rolls with me. He falls into that negative space. One more time, if I try rolling, and again, get an overhead shot as much as you can, so you can see the position of my head. If my head is in the center, if I don't move it, if I don't create that negative space, I'm trying to move through a solid object, my own head. So when I roll him, he can post out on this leg, or even if I have this leg trapped, he can post out on this arm. And now he's not going to roll. Okay? So it's that invisible jiu-jitsu, if you will, that stuff you don't really see unless you know it. Move the head out of the way, roll over, and even if he puts that arm in the way, now we can get out, get on top, finish that upa. So it's very similar to doing a backward roll. Here, get up for just a moment. If I'm trying to do a backward shoulder roll like this, okay, how does that work? I move my head out of the way. It's the exact same thing. I move my head to the side. I create a negative space here so that my body can go over there. If I keep my head in the center and try to do a backward roll, I can't move through my head. Okay? So one more time, let's do it correctly. Jordan's on top. Grab this arm. This is not that important. This is position of the head. Jordan, stop this. Stop this. Upa, you know it's coming. Stop it. So, question, why couldn't you stop the roll?
You're stronger. I guess
It-
the hips were stronger.
It felt like I was stronger, right? You know Karen, right? 50
Yeah.
kilo Karen, tiny little Chinese girl. She can do this technique. A lot of people might think, well, you're just cooperating. No, it's because she's doing it correctly. When you create a vacuum of space, you got to fill that with something when you push an object toward that. So biomechanics are so very important. A lot of people might say, oh, it's just a tiny little detail, and in the streets the average person doesn't know this stuff. Well, yeah, I know the average person doesn't know this stuff. You have somebody bigger and stronger on top of you beating the crap out of you with their elbows or the fists or their head or whatever, then yeah, you have to make sure that your biomechanics are correct, because half measures will not work in that situation. Anyway, thanks for watching. Now get out there and train correctly.